Hello, my name's Chris Smee. This is my brief presentation on how the founding theories continue to work in today's government. I'm specifically going to talk about separation of powers and checks and balances. So our founding fathers were pretty much paranoid that the government was going to get too large, too big, too powerful, tyrannical. So they divided the powers up into three different branches. You have your legislative, they essentially create the laws. You have the executive, they essentially carry out the laws. And then you have the judicial, and they essentially interpret the laws. Within these different branches, each branch has different checks and balances on one another. Legislative, they can impeach the president, they can reject judicial nominees, they can refuse to fund executive programs, they can also amend the Constitution. The executive branch, however, they can veto the legislative, they can veto the laws. This, however, can be overturned by the legislative branch if they have a two-thirds vote in both houses. Um, the executive branch, they can also pardon people, and they nominate of course, the federal judges and the Supreme Court justices. The judicial branch, it's relatively weak. They essentially can just declare laws unconstitutional, and they can also check the executive branch and actions and executive orders by declaring those unconstitutional. So this relates today. I mean, all presidents issue executive orders, and many of which are contested. Um, this particular case is when Trump signed his travel ban back in January, the first of which ban um, uh, the lower courts challenged this, mainly being that it violated the First Amendment protections against religious discrimination. As you know, his ban specifically called out Muslim refugees and immigrants. um, the Trump administration later issued another executive order, refining the language a bit more to sort of appease the lower courts. However, the lower courts still had a problem with the executive order, essentially saying that the language he used in his campaign trail and the previous executive order, that you can't possibly dissociate the religion from the aspect up from the ban. So, at every time the Trump administration, they appealed the lower court's decisions, and they had asked for the Supreme Court to weigh in. The Supreme Court did weigh in. Essentially, they are allowing the ban to continue, with the exception that people coming into the country need to have some sort of bona fide connection, which was also hotly contested for a while. But hopefully, this whole thing will be put to rest in October, when the Supreme Court will officially hear the case. So, in summary, separation of power and more importantly, the system of checks and balances are still functioning and still play a role today. Thanks.